Hey, Ethan here, and in this episode we'll be looking at the original Assassin's Creed from 2007. It's the first game in the AC series, and it's also the first game in the series that I have fully played, so I think it's now time for me to explain some more. The original Assassin's Creed was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and originally started out as another Prince of Persia game. After the team was done working on Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, the new game was originally called Prince of Persia Assassin and was scheduled to be released for the 7th generation of consoles, but was ultimately scrapped in favor of Assassin's Creed. The game originally started work in September of 2004, with around 20 people working on the project. The team wanted to focus on a story involving the Order of the Assassins and the Apple of Eden with an open world driven approach. They also wanted to make the world and cities feel realistic and historically accurate for the time period, and allowing the player a level of freedom similar to the Grand Theft Auto series. Around the Game Developers Conference of 2006, members of the team decided to call the game Assassin's Creed, with its first official reveal at E3 2006. Following E3, a bunch of members joined the team after working on Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones, which made the team to around 150 people. About a week before the game was supposed to be put into mass production on disc, Ubisoft CEO Sun played the game and found it boring that the game had no side quests, so they then rushed a few side quests into the game. It was finally released on November 13, 2007 in North America for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, with a PC port coming later in April 2008 as the director's cut. For me personally, I have never played the Assassin's Creed series up until this point because it never really interested me, and I was also real young when most of the originals came out and I simply wasn't allowed to play it. I originally bought the PS3 version back in January of 2023 and ended up buying the 360 version a few months later, which this will be the version that I'll be mostly basing the episode off of. I know I wanted to make content on it, so I didn't want to really play the game until this year so I can make an episode, but I think it's time for me to talk about the original Assassin's Creed. The story of Assassin's Creed takes place in two different time periods, the first in 2012 and the second in 1191. It starts out in Rome, Italy in 2012, where you play as the character of Desmond Miles, who is a bartender voiced by Noah North, the same Noah North that voices Nathan Drake in the Uncharted games, and has been kidnapped by a pharmaceutical company called Abstrago Industries under the supervision of Dr. Warden Vidic and his assistant Lucy Stillman. They captured Desmond because they believe that he has genetic memory of his ancestors being a former senior assassin to the Assassination Brotherhood during the Third Crusade, and use a device called the Artemis to help collect Desmond's memories. The second time period is during 1191, where the player plays as Altair, which is an ancestor of Desmond Miles and is an assassin. This part of the game starts out at Solomon's Temple, where Altair and a few other assassins are looking for the Apple of Eden inside the temple, so their enemies, the Knights Templar, will not be able to get their hands on it. Altair ends up taking the life of an innocent, which goes against the assassin's code of honor. They do find the Apple of Eden, but one of the assassins gets killed, and Altair runs into one of the top members of the Knights Templar, being Robert de Sable, but Altair gets separated as a result. Back in Mustaf, where the assassins are located, Altair talks to his master, Al-Malum, and tells him that they have failed, which this frustrates him as they get word that Robert de Sable is attacking their fortress, which causes the assassins and the Knights Templar to fight each other. But as a result, Altair is stripped of his rank and all of his weapons and abilities, setting up the events of the main game, where Altair must gain back his trust of the Brotherhood and Al-Malum by going to the cities of Archie, Jerusalem, and Damascus to assassinate targets linked to Robert de Sable and the Knights Templar. After every major assassination, Altair gains back one of his abilities and weapons, ultimately leading him to Robert de Savo, while Robert tells Altair that his leader Al-Malum is corrupt and that he must stop him. This leads Altair to stop Malum as he uses the Apple of Eden to hurt Altair, but Altair is able to kill him. In the present, men in suits walk in and talk to Desmond and the others about the information they need and then walk away. And that's basically a rough outline of the first Assassin's Creed. The gameplay of Assassin's Creed is broken down into 3 separate parts: combat, traversal, and other activities. There is a thing called the synchronization bar, which shows how in tune you are with your ancestors' memory and also represents how much health you have. The bar shows if you have been exposed by enemies, cooling down, vanishing, vanish, and annoy. You also play from a third-person perspective. You can shove and grab people, hide from people, climb up buildings and structures, stealth assassinate people, and see people through walls and buildings using eagle vision, which is similar to the detective vision system in the Batman Arkham games. You can also sprint and blend through crowds by also using these scholars to sneak into one of the 3 cities mentioned earlier. There is also the combat system where you can punch people, hit people with a sword, sneak up behind the stealth kill, throw a knife, which I barely have done, and use another type of weapon. The sword gameplay can allow you to strike, block, counter, and dodge enemies, among other attacks. You can also ride on a horse in certain areas and climb to certain places called viewpoints to unlock more of the map in your current area and other objectives. It reminds me of the towers in the Insomniac Spider-Man games. After a viewpoint has been unlocked, you get off of it by jumping down into a pile of hay and can rescue civilians, eavesdrop on conversations, pickpocket and interrogate people, and help other fellow assassins and collect flags throughout each of the cities. You can also climb on any building you can see, and that's basically the gameplay of Assassin's Creed 1, and you're also allowed to walk around the lab as Desmond Miles. The graphics of Assassin's Creed 1 look good for the time period. It definitely looks like an early 7th generation game, but still looks quite nice. It uses the proprietary Scimitar engine, now known as Ubisoft Anvil, and has been used in every Assassin's Creed game ever since. The game targets 720p at 30 FPS on both the Xbox 360 and PS3. The PC version can of course run at a higher resolution and frame rate, but I've heard that it is hard to get the game running on modern computers. The best way to play it nowadays is on the Xbox Series X, shown here. It has better texture detail, shadows, and runs at 4K 60 FPS, making this the best looking and playing version of the game. Well, that's basically the original Assassin's Creed from 2007. It's the game that started the Assassin's Creed series as we know it today. I personally really enjoyed it, but I have just one problem. Why is there no option for subtitles?